name is Milorad Stojmenović. I'm author of this paper. Co-author of this paper is Professor Dr. Suzana Pavlović. She is full-time professor at Class Sanitary School of Professional Studies. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here present today. Let's start this topic with, first of all, I would like to clarify some things. We need to know what basically are clinical trials and who are the subjects and institutions who are involved basically in procedures related to clinical trials. So, just in short, the aim of clinical trials is confirmation of pharmacological and pharmacodynamic effects on drugs, identification of adverse reactions on tested drug, examination of absorption, distribution, effects on metabolism, excretion of drug, and safety and efficiency. I will not go deeply in this subject. This is a subject of general practice of medical and pharmaceutical science. Who are the subjects? Who are the institutions who are involved in this process of decision-making system in Republic of Serbia? So basically, we have a sponsor. Sponsor of clinical trials is a producer, or it is a legal or a natural person. This is according to our official Gazette. Also, this is according to EU directives. So basically, it is the same definition. Sponsors' responsibility are related to initiation, management, quality control, and financing of any clinical trials. Also, very important person in actually the subject in a field of clinical trials is contract research organization, and the sponsor is able to authorize contract research organization through some kind of contracts to represent sponsors' interest in the Republic of Serbia or any other country. On the part of the state, we have institutions such as ethics committees, and we have competent authorities in the Republic of Serbia. We have a case of Medicines and Medical Devices Agency of Serbia. So basically, in the field of decision-making processes, ethics committee have really valuable stake. And we can say that their basic target is to make decision according to all submitted documents related to implementation of any new clinical trial, or basically of any amendment on clinical trial which is based on some kind of changes. So in some legal time framework, they have to approve some of those decisions or disapprove and to inform all other institutions and participants. This is just to show you, to get idea about how many documents you need to submit to any of those institutions on side of Republic of Serbia. So from practice, I can tell you that these documents, which are now written in bullets, can be from several hundred to several thousand of pages. So it is a huge documentation. So basically, what are the problems? We have here a situation that we have decision-making process which is conducted in several phases. It is long, it is segmented, we have uncertain income, we have increasing of time spending and repeating of same procedures several times. Of course, we have to pay any of these procedures because we are paying for all of these services or making all of these approvals. So what is the desired situation? We need a centralized innovative decision-making system which is already approved in a lot of countries in EU and also in United States of America, I think in Japan also. So basically we need a new innovative system which will give us opportunity to avoid shortcomings in terms of time, cost and efficiency. So now this is the graphic which was made by me and the co-author Professor Pavlović. So I would like to just to show how complicated this phase of getting new approval of on the side of local ethics committees and of course Medicines and Medical Devices Agency of Serbia is. So this is just a graph. We have phase 1, 2, 3, and 5. We have beginning of process and end of process. Beginning of process is related to sponsor decision. So basically, sponsor make an authorization, give this authorization as a legal rights to clinical or contract research organization. This is the phase 2. Then clinical research organization need to submit those documents to all investigational site. What is investigational site? Any research institutions, any hospital, any clinical center could be potential investigational site. So because of that, I put here site N. So basically, we can have numerous investigational sites. Then any of those sites have its local partialized ethics committee which needs to separately bring decision on all of those documents. So several hundreds to several thousands of documents need to be submitted again to this local ethics committee separately. And of course we have to pay for it. This is the first level of decision. Fourth phase is related to clinical research organization which have to physically get all of those approvals from local ethics committee and submit them to the competent authority, and this will be the second level of decision, actually the end of this process. What we suggest? We suggest one easily defined and essential change. We have the phase one, which is basically the same. We have the contract research organization which have already authorization received from the sponsor. They will submit those documents to the investigational site. Then additionally they have to submit those documents to National Ethics Committee. So the phase 3 is only difference between these two graphs, which you can see better on this slide. So here we can check that phase 1 is the same, phase 2 is basically the same, and phase 3 is the difference. So this is the essence of our scientific paper. So basically, now when we have made this kind of centralized system for decision making processes in field of clinical trials, we would like to implement that service in the Republic of Serbia. So our suggestion is to try to implement this service through sashimi model of innovation service developing model with overlapping phases. This will be, in short, the phase model of the developing new service. So we have 6 points here. We have possibility analysis, feasibility defining, design testing, development, implementation, pilot test, and also commercialization. Possibility analysis. We have to answer on all of those questions. So is new service profitable? We found that it is, and it is profitable for all sides. What is the capacity and support of involved organization for implementation of project? Before answering these questions, we need to follow framework which need to be considered. So, Ministry of Health of Republic of Serbia need to bring final decision about implementation of this new model. We need to have changes in a law frame. Also, we need to have changes in institutional network of involved institutions. So, generally, infrastructure of all institutions should be changed actually. Sorry. What are the benefits for all involved subject institutions? We have 3 main stakeholders. Benefits for sponsor will be cost, time, and efficiency. Benefit for state will be transparent system in decision-making processes, which will further lead to higher number of sponsors and transparent system of state monitoring activities. And of course, we have benefits for patient. Here is written just one, receiving drug in predicted time, but we can think about some others also. Feasibility and defining. So basically, in this phase, we need to define in detail all phases. So I think that we have done this in this stage. So we have all phases already which are defined. So we can basically continue with essential idea. This is the essential idea. We have centralization of local ethics committee into one body, one regulatory body, and we have clinical research organization which is authorized on the side of the sponsor that will submit all of those documents instead to all of them just to one central ethics committee. Design, development, implementation, and pilot test. In these spaces, we need to have clear outline of design. We have to solve infrastructural problems. We have a very good situation because the declaration of EU with this number enables implementation of mentioned centralized ethics committee, and as the Republic of Serbia is going to harmonize all legal framework with the European Union. So basically, this is a good situation for implementation of our model. All components from previous phases, of course, have to be solved and included. All the operational and support systems are identified and defined precisely, but this is the main target. So Ministry of Health needs to make definition after they bring the final decision about implementation of this central ethics committee, we will have their definition of transition strategy. According to this definition of transition strategy, we will go to development of project because according to strategy we can make action plan. So basically, Ministry of Health have to ensure new model and to analyze infrastructure and its appropriateness. Commercialization is the last stage of this sashimi model. So basically, in this is a final stage. Here, all the phases need to be clarified and summarized, and we have to be sure about readiness and that all phases are summarized in the best way. What are the main specificities of project? Every project has its own specificities. So here we have just find out that when you change once this system, you cannot go back and use old system retroactively. So we have to check about these problems. Also, we have to inform all of subjects, all of institutions that are involved in these processes about all changes. They need to be informed on time. So basically, our suggestion is creation of separate promotion service, which will provide all of those information to involved subjects. And of course, new laws and law frames. If we are speaking about information that will be displayed on site of Republic of Serbia, they will be displayed in official Gazette of Republic of Serbia. Conclusion. So basically, this is just in short, but we have present model which is centralized, which is time and cost efficient, which is transparent and beneficial for all subject institutions, and basically this new model creates better business conditions and better overall business environment, which is of utmost importance today. So this was it.
I must commend you because your presentation was really time-driven. So now I'm inviting the other speakers and participants. If they have some questions, it's now time to start. If it's not, thank you once more. And now I'm inviting our dear colleagues